Hi, my name is Brandie Paterakis, and I'm the owner of Blue Bee Counseling Services. I'm a mother and wife who is passionate about life and has found joy in helping others improve their mental health. The goal of this podcast is not only to provide enriching entertainment, but to help others in their pathway to have a more fulfilling life. This in no way is a replacement for therapy. Follow us on this journey of mental health awareness. Blue Bee Counseling Services now presents this podcast, Therapist Table Talk. Hi, welcome to Therapist Table Talk today. My name is Brandie Paterakis, and I'm the owner of Blue Bee Counseling Services located in South Jordan, Utah. I'm an LCSW, and I'm joined here today with my fun friends, and I'm so excited to have them. This is Mitch and Shannon, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves.
Hi guys, I'm Mitch Acton. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a family systems therapist with the Family Advocacy Center. I don't know if there's anything else I need to add to that, but
that's perfect.
And I'm Shannon Elite. I am with the Family Advocacy Center. I am a therapist there, and this is kind of my little baby brainchild. So I'm super excited to talk to you today about this topic.
Now, here is the really great news. I don't know much about family reunification as far as like what you guys do. I know a little bit. It comes into my office. We kind of get it. You kind of have to deal with it when you're working with people in divorce, and that kind of is on the rise right now. And so it definitely comes through my office, but not at the degree of what you guys work on. So I'm really excited to kind of dive in, ask some questions, feel a little stupid today, which I'm totally willing to like dive into and lean into a little bit and be like, okay, all of us therapists know that there's always that button where we're like, sucker, I don't know everything. And so here's mine. And I'm really excited to get to know and to dive into this. So I guess let's talk about some statistics. Statistically speaking, let me open my computer because I had it right here. I didn't have it prepared. But statistically speaking, they talk about 255,000 children like definitely exit the foster system, with almost 50% being reunited with their parents or primary givers. Now, I know that this isn't kind of like what we're talking about today. We're not talking about, and this is why I want to bring this up, is because there's kind of two different kinds of family reunification, right? And there might be more. I don't know. Maybe there's more. But there's two that I know about. And so one of them is with parents and divorced children, and the reunification that kind of happens between a family member or family unit and trying to reunify them together in this new process of going forward in a new life. And the other part is also children exiting the family, and based on like CPS or other unhealthy or problem issues that kind of get the children out of the home and then having to reunify them to get them back in. And so today what we're going to talk about is actually the divorce. We're talking about families that get divorced and how to reunify them with different parents and children, and how to like create that cohesive family unit back again in a different way, because it's not really, we can't really go like this. It's more like we have to go like this, but this maybe. Does that work?
Like Tom's like this.
yeah. That's therapy.
So I thought this is kind of interesting. What do you think is like, just to introduce to some of these listeners that's out there is like, what? I had no idea this is even a theme. There is companies out there. Finally, you guys, we finally have them. And this is so wonderful, is we have this group of people, especially like you guys today, that join families together. And that's actually your job and your business of what you guys do. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'll tell you just to start off. So this is my happy place, as I'm seeing this wonderful sign over here. Family reunification is really important to me, as I went through a very difficult divorce, went through a custody battle, and did that all by myself. I didn't have a lot of supports. Nobody really knows what to do with you when there's high conflict. We were looking at some statistics at a meeting we were just at, and 20% of 1,000 cases end up being high conflict. All divorces are conflict, but over a prolonged period of time, which means that they're going to need extra services because there's extra litigation. There's now problems where kids aren't seeing parents as much, or sometimes even being prevented from seeing a parent, or there's a rift, like I'm mad at one parent because they had an affair, or there's an addiction or things like that. So there's just hasn't been resources out there for families to deal very specifically with these issues, because they're a little nuanced and a whole lot of fun for me. As I feel like this is my life mission.
Yeah.
This is something super important to me. And luckily I have a great partner with Mitch in this. No, because he's a great therapist, and this is really takes a very special kind of person to want to deal with people that are really struggling with this high conflict stuff that just is so high stress all the time.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's helpful to like give a definition about, because you mentioned there are different types of reunification, and I think we have our own kind of natural inclinations, or our mind goes certain places when we hear the word reunification. Like, what does that mean? So just to kind of like give a definition, typically the reunification therapy we're doing is when, yes, it's a high conflict divorce, parents are divorced or separated, and there's a parent-child relational problem. And so kind of what our goal is, what we're trying to do is help reunify in the sense of reestablishing contact between that parent and the child, or potentially both parents, kind of depending on what the situation is. Or it could be, I personally haven't had this yet, but it could be also reunifying someone whose parents in the military and prolonged absence because of military deployment or incarceration, or if there's addiction issues, being in a addiction facility for a prolonged period of time, and then trying to reestablish that contact between the parent and the child.
I love that. This is so wonderful. So I love hearing some of those things. Some of those things I didn't even actually think about, which is kind of fascinating for me. And how many of our listeners know somebody, have been a part of that, that circumstance or that situation. And maybe even some of them are going, I had no idea this was even a possibility that I could have been reunited with my parents in this kind of a way with help out there. I mean, in looking on the internet, it seems like, and also talking with some of my clients, that some of the most frustrating things is recognizing that there's resources out there that you don't know about that could have been helpful to you, that you wish you could have had in order to make your life just a little bit easier. And so I love it that you guys are in this business and doing this thing, which is super awesome. What do you feel like is some of the kind of conflict that kind of comes through your doors that kind of puts people a little bit further behind?
There's a couple things. Number one, there's just this prolonged litigation, constant litigation. Sometimes, a lot of times, there's protective orders back and forth, right? There's that, and then there's this lack of boundaries of who's doing what, when, where, why, and how. And it's just this mess because you really, being divorced, you have no idea where to start. You don't know what it's supposed to look like. You just know everything's changed. And then you couple that with some really high stress, and then you have attorneys that join in and say, oh, we got to fight for this. It's I'm right, you're wrong. Those kinds of things where you're really trying to settle down this positional place that you can't do with families. And that's how our court systems are set up, right? You prove you're right, or you're good, or you're bad. And that's how we decide it. But families, that's not the way we work. We work with forgiveness, love, accountability, those kinds of concepts.
Yes.
Yeah, something else I'll throw into that too, just like what's happening within the family system. This is a pretty big buzzword, has some controversy around it, but alienation or estrangement, if you'd prefer that term, or if there's a different term. But there's typically some type of behavior that either a parent knowingly or maybe unknowingly will be doing that's harming the relationship between the child and the other parent. So it could be as simple as talking negatively about that particular parent just outright not allowing the child to go see that parent, or making up lies, or kind of telling this story or creating this narrative about the other parent or what the situation is.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. I love hearing all of these things. It kind of gets me into a place where I go, I wonder what, like our listeners or people that are listening right now, what are some tips that maybe they could get to help them start this process? Like, how do they even, navigate this or find this? Or like, if you're a kid and maybe you want to reunify with your family, like, where do they go from here? How does it all start?
Usually, a lot of our referrals that come into a family advocacy center come from attorneys, come from guardian ad litems, and other people, and other therapists, quite frankly, an awful lot. And this is one of those things where we're identifying, hey, this family is struggling. We just can't seem to get to a place where everybody can start cooperating and negotiating through things and problem solving. It's just a battle all the time. So that's where the majority of how people reach us. It certainly, you can start by a great therapist. And when we can get ourselves out there and realize that there's additional resources that we can provide, that's a great way to get started. Because often, a lot of the things that you're going to have happen, we were just talking about this earlier, is some of those emotional regulation skills that you need, some self-soothing techniques that would be helpful for you to handle the significant amount of stress that is coming towards you.
I love that.
Yeah, you bringing up resources made me think, I wonder if it's a good time to bring up the AFCC, which is the Association of Family and Conciliation Courts, which is an international organization of professionals that includes therapists, judges and commissioners, attorneys, even folks like divorce real estate professionals and financial professionals that all come together and kind of have a common guideline of helping family systems work and helping the reunification process. So there actually is a specific structure and research that has backed this type of therapy up in terms of this is the most helpful for helping these families. And so one way, that would be helpful is potentially looking up, is this therapist or this professional I'm working with AFCC informed? Because they're going to have a little bit more knowledge than maybe this therapist that you're seeing right now at your outpatient counseling center is going to have about this. So
that's and Brandie, if somebody came to you and said, "Will you come testify in court?" What is the therapist going to say? Oh my gosh, no way, right?
I'm like, I have paperwork that signs and says I don't have to do that.
Right? But that's what we do on a regular basis, is we're advocating for families in a very different way. We're talking with attorneys all the time. We are collaborating with the whole team to get this family out of the court system and back into some better functioning and better relationships.
That is awesome. Well, how wonderful. Now tell me this, what are some things that you are definitely seeing that come in your doors with the children that you guys work with?
The children.
Yeah.
I love seeing the kids.
The lens that really influences the work we're doing through the lens of the kids. Yeah.
So the kids often come in feeling like they do not have a voice. They have been told by guardian ad litems, which are the attorneys for the children in court cases that involve children, certain things, and they think they're going to have a voice, and then they're like, but I don't want to go see this parent, and then now you're telling me I have to. And so a lot of that starts with helping that child learn that they are in control of the relationships that they have with the people around them. And there's a really important concept that we work to combat, which is emotional cutoff. Where, what do? We're kind of taught, if someone's toxic in your life, you cut them out. You don't want to be around them. But really, we're trading some short-term, difficult conversations for long-term dysfunction when we do that. So especially with kids, we're teaching them, I can have some boundaries. I can give this to the relationship. My parent can give this to the relationship, and it can look like this, and that feels good.
Oh, I love that. I love teaching the children that they have more power than what they have. I think that's one of the biggest fears when we get that family reunification, of recognizing that the children have fears and they're legitimate and they're real. And as soon as we can teach them that they have power, those fears can kind of, diminish just a little bit, enough to add trust back in. And teaching them how to trust themselves.
Yes.
How to recognize that there's safety, because I think that safety is a big issue with children. And so I love it that this is like the concepts that are kind of used throughout this, which is great.
I talk about it in we resolve relationships.
Yeah, I like that. Resolving relationships. That is perfect. Do you find that because of such complicated family matters that come in, do you deal with a lot more or a lot higher caseload as far as like DSM diagnoses or mental disabilities or issues that kind of come up?
I wouldn't say any more than usual, although it is very common for everyone to come in and diagnose their partner as being a narcissist or being borderline personality disorder. The truth of the matter is, sometimes people are just jerks. And we act in ways that are not consistent with how we truly view ourselves and how we want to be, because we feel hurt, we're threatened, all of these things. This is an identity shift when you get divorced. Suddenly, I'm only a mom 50% of the time. What are you talking about? My whole life, I've been playing with babies as a kid, and I've been dreaming of having kids. Now I'm only going to be a mom 50% of the time. How does that work? It's identity shift. And the same goes for dads.
Yeah, which is pretty heavy. Do you see that there's a heavier dynamic with like one gender over another, as far as like complications with children or like reunifying families?
I mean, I don't know. I would say like typically what I see is mom is the preferred parent or the aligned parent. It's not always that way, but typically just, and I think that has kind of like a historical basis as well, and just the kind of legal ties as well. But I don't know, that's one thing that I see quite a bit with the families that I work with, and that it's a lot of times dad that's needing to do the reunifying. Not always, but that's just typically what I see.
Yeah. I mean, we know that women are a little bit more nurturing, and, you know, that tends to be kind of their place in the home is, I'm not saying place in the home, but like they tend to, you know, that's more their responsibility is the care of the children in most family units. And that's kind of changing, which is actually really exciting.
Yes.
I'm seeing a lot more men take over that role and dive into the caretaking of the children. And the woman tends to be more of like, you know, making up the ends meet for the home and that sort of thing. And then we're also doing a new shift where there's both that are doing the ends meet for the home. And the caretaking is being, you know, divided out to other facilities or places. And so
family members sometimes as well.
If we have families that are watching this and they are in this process where they're like, oh my gosh, I'm really struggling with like reunifying. I'm a part of a divorce system, and I have a child that does not want to have anything to do with me right now. Like, what are some of your suggestions that they could do with that? Like, maybe some tips and tricks to get them started on the way to start preparing themselves. Is there a way that we can like maybe open their eyes a little bit to like pointing fingers into themselves? Because we kind of want to do that thing, right? Where
accountability,
we're like,
all the way,
or he is holding my child away from me, or my child, or the system, and we're like pointing all these fingers at everybody else, and that everybody else is the problem, and it might be so. But how we can't control the things that are out.
So you know what's interesting, Brandie, is a lot of times parents forget that just because the spouse was a bad spouse doesn't mean that they're a bad parent to the child. And so we deal with that a lot from that angle where, you know, it's hard. It's a loss. It's a huge loss. But that doesn't mean that parent is going to show up in the same way for the child as they showed up for you. So that's a huge one. And we always go back to emotional regulation skills. Always going back to having a good support system, self-soothing techniques, being able to take care of yourself and be able to say no, all the things, right? And just realize that I tell people all the time, you do not have to defend your motherhood or fatherhood. Ever. You don't have to defend it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Speaking like, it's kind of interesting because we work with the family system, right? It's a family systems approach. So it's a little bit different than individual counseling. And so when I'm working with the individual pieces of that system, so the individuals in it, you know, the parent that's, we'll say the primary parent or with the child the majority of the time right now, it is a little bit more of like highlighting, at least initially, highlighting the relationship dynamic of like your relationship with your ex is different than your ex's relationship with their child. That's a different relationship, and there's a difference in the significance there at this point. And so it is a lot of coaching on like how do you support that? How do you be aware of yourself, of like where is maybe some projection coming into play where my experience with my ex is now influencing how I'm interacting with my child or how I'm interacting with the family system, the court system, and therapy. Where when I'm working with the parent that's doing the reunifying, it is a lot of trying to highlight where did I potentially cause some damage, trying to get some accountability, because I find when we do come together, kids are going to test, okay, has there been any shift? Are they going to handle this in a different way at all? And so, the guidance there is really being willing to take accountability, hear out what the concerns or the complaints are, and respond sensitively to whatever the child might be bringing up in that case.
I love that. I think that this is like some important momentum moving forward. Like definitely we have, you call it the primary caregiver at that moment, whoever that is. I think it's very valuable for them to see, and this is kind of what I'm hearing you say, is that it's very valuable for them to see that the relationship that they had with their partner is not the same relationship they have with their child. And therefore, it's also critical for that child to have a relationship with that parent. Yeah. And so sometimes getting past some of your hurts and your pains and the struggles that you're having, and it can be really difficult to allow your child to go out and to have that relationship with that child or that parent when you've been so deeply wounded or hurt by them.
Yeah, you get jealous.
Yes, I mean, it's definitely basic humanistic components, right? Which is totally understandable. And so I think that this is such a beautiful thing to recognize. Like, this is where I like to turn my parents away from that and turn their focus towards the child and say, I need you to look at this child and tell me what's best for this child. I need you to come outside your own self, your hurt, your grief, your pain, and like be able to see that child. And there's some issues that can come from a child, the talk in the home that's kind of happening, or the parents telling the child certain information. And I like to be like, we have a couple of people in my facility that's like, that's parent talk. Like, let's recognize that's parent talk, and we don't talk parent talk. That will leave the parent talk up to the parents. And so that we can like navigate, we kind of sometimes as therapists have to teach the parents how to talk in the home when this newly divorced situation happens, because of our anger, or whoever's getting the divorce, or whoever has the primary caregiving of the child, if they say things, it can be super hurtful for that child to reunite with their parent, which can be very damaging for that child, because now that we're working with abandonment issues, we're working with attachment issues, we're working with wounds that are starting to open, which could potentially, I know we're going to go to like dun dun dun, but like here we go, and it can lead to some really big issues in that child's life, as far as some big diagnoses with like leading to borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, all sorts of attachment issues. Like there's some components here that can be based on this. And yes, that's like really far down there, and those are deep and heavy diagnoses, but definitely it's a gateway. It can start it.
For sure. We call it the loyalty contract.
Okay.
So the loyalty contract is this. Every child wants to please their parent. Yeah. Every child wants their parent to know, I'm on your side. I'm behind you. Yeah. I want to be here with you. And so they will sometimes tell that parent whatever that parent needs to hear. Because they are little people pleasers, right? We have little human people pleasers. And this is where we get into a lot of conflict, because we'll have mom say, the child wants to live with me. And dad say, no, child says they want to live with me. Just came out and said it, right? Yeah. And that's a very common thing. But it's these kids that get in the middle they're just trying to say, I love you. And the only way they know how to do that is, I want to live with you. You're cool. I like you.
Yes. Right? I love that. Yes. And that can be a heavy burden on these children to have to, it's on them to make that decision. And that's where I feel like it's so helpful to have, someone else that can advocate and talk with the child about these things and say, actually, you don't have to choose that right now. Yeah. Like, you don't have to make those choices. Let's just learn how to coexist between both parents right now. Let's give them equal amount of time, or sometimes that's not the case and they can't have equal amount of time. Then we can say, well, let's see what we can do to help mom or dad out to get equal amount of time, right? Like, it's going to come and it's there. But this is very difficult. I also see the other side of things on the other parent that's more of the estranged parent, or the parent that's like kind of been pulled away, and those hopelessness feelings of like, this hurts so badly. I can see how parents can be like, screw it, I'm out.
Yes.
Like, or
oh boy,
I'm done. Like,
they have
give me,
such a hard time. It's just going back and forth all the time because it's emotionally exhausting. It's financially draining. It's stressful, and it shows up everywhere in your life.
Right, and I think it hits on some of our most innermost sensitivities of feeling rejected, especially in such a primary relationship, which is a parent-child relationship, and to have that rejection. I mean, it's
huge.
It hits on the deepest parts of ourselves, and so it is very tempting because we want to protect ourselves, to be like, well, maybe the best thing for me to do is to just pull back, is to just not pursue this relationship anymore, or at least for right now.
Yes. And as like an adult, maybe even listening to this, they might be like, hey, I have an estranged parent that didn't put effort into my life. And to be like, whoa, could this be one of those situations? Like, it's not that they didn't want to, but they didn't know how. And they didn't have maybe the emotional capacity to be able to fight the war. And whether the war is with, the law system, or with the other parent that was the primary caregiver, or even the child that looks at them with fear and disdain because of maybe some mistakes that they had made in the past, without understanding that those things can be repaired and fixed.
Oh, yes.
And like, there can be a lot of like growth and help. And that because there was one thing that was hurtful that happened, it doesn't mean that it would happen again. And if it did, how there's things that are getting away for that parent. Yes. Not that we're giving that parent excuses. Yes, if you're one of them, get help, get out there and do the things that you need to do to fix
your work.
yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes, but definitely to find that, don't give up, I guess, is my like major number one thing. If you're a parent, don't give up, because the child can't see the why behind it.
Oh, yes. Yeah. This is, I tell parents all the time, consistently. Sometimes we just say, we'll have parents, I just want to, they text, hi, how are you? How's school? What's going on? And I always encourage them, just send a happy memory. I remember when you were 2 years old.
I love that.
And we did this. And that is a little bit better way to say, I love you, without any pressure of answering questions about how they're doing. Because kids are, you know how kids are.
Yes.
How was school? Fine.
One word answers.
Yes. How was lunch? Good.
I love creating curiosity. It's like the mic drop when you're like, hey, I'm going to be in the kitchen doing that thing, but I really want to hear about your day if you want to come and tell me.
Memories are a good way to always just say, I'm thinking about you. This came up for me.
I love that.
And we just send that in a text. And that can just be one of those encouraging things that your parent is still there.
Oh my gosh.
And reaching out even to your own parent if you're estranged and you want to rekindle that, even just saying, hey, this came up for me.
I love that. That is such a beautiful thing, because it doesn't put pressure on the kids, like you said. It doesn't make them feel shame or guilt that they can't do or supply that thing that they want, because they're trying to people please, we've said. And so that is such a good thing, especially if the kids are like, no, I don't want to have a relationship with you, and I'm frustrated with you, and I'm angry with you, and I saw some things that you did that wasn't helpful and was hurtful to my parent, my other parent, and so now I'm really siding with them and I'm binding to them. It can be really great to just also take accountability and be like, I am so sorry that happened, and I'm working on that. And I want to build a relationship with you, and I'm learning how. I'm going to therapy, or I'm doing these things, and here's some of the things that I'm doing. And you don't worry. I got this. This is my part that I have to play. Instead of being like, you need to give me a chance.
Yes.
And you need to make sure that you do this for me. And when are we going to go together? I love that. Oh,
So and we beautiful. So one of my favorite things to do with families is what I call the boundary house. And a piece of that is really, and kind of the crux of it is we figure out what stage your relationship is in. What are you going to give it as a child? What do you want in return? And what if there's certain boundaries, like, we don't want to talk about this, or we don't want to do that. Then they understand it's about them also giving to the relationship. Even if it's just saying, oh, you're going to send me that one memory text, I'm going to acknowledge that I got it.
Wow. That's cool. Because, we know teens, they don't want to acknowledge anything.
No,
they're like,
no.
And you're on
But
silent.
even just, hitting the thumbs up button or a heart or something like that means everything to a parent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the kids don't feel too much pressure. They can just remember, we're loved. We're still loved.
I love that. Oh my gosh, this is such good. Any other tips or tricks that you guys use in your office when you're working with parents or kids in trying to reunify them that maybe new therapists out there could really benefit from?
one of my favorite things, I know Mitch loves this too. It's called Relationship Dynamics. It is something that has been developed through our sister company, Connections Counseling. It is kind of slowly starting to roll out, and hopefully it'll be an evidence-based treatment very soon.
Oh, wow.
But it is putting the family on an 8x8 mat. We're moving around on this mat and understanding how family dynamics, if you go there, I have to go here. We got to keep this balanced. I have heard so many times that families who have been in therapy for many years, it all comes together there.
What?
And then they all have the same language to be able to say, I don't have any power in this situation, and you keep telling me I need to make a decision, right?
Yeah.
Ooh. It's stuff like that. It's awesome. It just gives me chills even thinking about it, because it's fabulous. So if you ever want to do one of those sessions, Mitch or I can do that. We love to do that with therapists too.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
It is really a life-changing intervention.
Maybe this is something that we could definitely form a video on, or maybe there's already one out there where our listeners or our viewers can go in and like watch a video actually taking place of this actually happening.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is fundamental. And so definitely check out our website, which is bluebcs.com. And on there, you'll go into our podcast area, and we'll have some links in there where you can definitely hook into some of these components. Maybe we can slip in a couple other modalities or some fun interventions that you guys use, and some papers, which could be helpful in this. So if we find one of those videos, we'll definitely link it there. We also are on YouTube. If you want to watch this instead of just listening to this, that's a great place to find us, as well as our website. You can watch it on there as well. Any last tips or tricks that we want to share with families that are just trying to unify, maybe don't even know that this is an opportunity or that something that can happen, for their families?
Don't give up hope.
Don't give up hope. Send the text. Send the text.
Reach out.
With the memory. What other things do you think like that partner or that family dynamic could use? Definitely maybe checking in with themselves, seeing what they're doing instead of pointing fingers at everyone else. I love that. Get some help from a therapist is always a great way. Work on maybe some childhood wounds or some complications that you've had in your life. Heal some of those things so they can see some of the progress. Emotional regulation is big, I think. Definitely. Like if we go in hot-headed and we're angry and frustrated, they're like, see? You're still the same person. So coming in, I teach my clients, come in as cool as a cat. If you come in elevated, then the other person wants to match you and raise you one, right? And so you can come in, you come in cool and be like, almost like you're playing a game, right? Be strategic and come in calm and reflect back some of the things that they say. One of the things that you could definitely look on is watch our podcast that we're going to talk about healthy communication styles. I have some models that I've come up with that have been super helpful. I'll just share really fast so you can have those, but definitely link into that podcast so you can watch those, because communication is so huge. We have to start with listening. And we have to listen with a ability to not try to be heard. Which is super hard. We got to listen to hear.
We feel like that's all we do.
Yes. And that we fall for traps in that all the time, because we want to listen to like buttle in or to heal ourselves or to gain allies or to create all sorts of complications. And so watch that. Watch the listening to actually hear them. I like to say, listen with a heart. Like of joy and of desire to win, rather than like a heart of war, if we want to say, from the Anatomy of Peace. Making sure that our heart is in the right place. We really want to find out what's going on here. And then from there, after we listen, go into mirroring back. Mirror back what you hear your kids say. It sounds like you're really frustrated with the way that I handled that thing with your other mother or father. And so if you can mirror back what they're saying, then they feel like you heard them, which I love. That is super, super important. And so mirroring back, do not forget it. Don't do it. You want to, because it feels uncomfortable, but it helps them recognize that you're right on the same page with them. And especially with teens, where they can re-interject and say, actually, that's not how I'm feeling at all. Or that's not what I was saying at all. And then you can be like, oh, yes, I'm so glad that I asked that, so we can get on the right page then. And then the third concept is validating. Validate them, help them be heard. It's totally understandable sitting knowing you the way that I know you, that you would want to sneak out in the middle of the night and go and do that thing. Yeah. That would sound really fun. I'm not telling you that I was right or okay. Yeah. You didn't hear me say that. And I don't tell my kids that, but definitely, validate them and why they did that thing that they're doing. And the reason why is because it creates a game for the walls to come down.
Yes.
Yeah. And then after the walls come down, then we're at a perfect point for redirection. Mm-hmm. We can redirect into any way, especially with children. If you are an estranged parent, you can't go in with trying to educate and
stop being a parent.
Yeah.
And
stop being a parent.
Yeah, stop being their parent and trying to get them on the basis of getting to understand where you're coming from. That's not the point of redirection. The point of redirection is to ask questions to get them there.
Yeah.
Call it discipline.
Yes.
You're disciplining, not punishing.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
And then also saying those things that kind of get them to reflect. Maybe it's a deeper level of empathy that's added in the redirection. Yeah. Uh-huh. Maybe some deeper level of understanding. Why did you feel the need to sneak out in the middle of the night? What were you hoping to gain for that? Did you get what you were hoping? Let's figure that out. And then from there, that can start the process of healing and coming together. There's safety that's brought in that point, and trust.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
And so those are some things that I think is really helpful. So go on to that, watch that. It goes into a little bit deeper. It hasn't been brought out yet. So if you're watching this soon, it's coming. You'll watch it and you'll love it when it does come. So anyway, thank you for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Hopefully we can have you back. By the way, just so you're aware, I don't know if it's coming out soon, but if it is, I definitely want to put a plug in here. Okay. Can we tell them a little bit about something hopefully happening in the future?
Happening soon. We're going to be starting our own podcast through Family Advocacy Center. It'll be called The Divorce Burrito, starring Mitch and myself, Shannon. And we have lots of great conversations, and we thought that would be a great place to start sharing a lot of what we've learned, not only for therapists, but as for clients too.
Yeah, I love that because we know the burrito, everything joins into a burrito.
Mm-hmm.
You can
throw
all
in there.
Yep. I love that. Yep. That actually makes me laugh a lot. They're probably going to be eating tacos while they're doing the burrito.
Oh, yeah. You better believe it. Big foil wrap burrito right there.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you love this podcast today. I hope there's pieces in here. Re-listen to it. Get it. I know it's a lot of information. Go talk to your therapist. Get the help you need. Look up the family. What was it called?
Family Advocacy Center.
Family Advocacy Center. And see if there's any help or resources on there that you can get. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.